everyone, and welcome to 30 Plays in 30 Days, a live arts retrospective. I'm Annie Temmink. I'm the interim technical director at Live Arts, and it's really great that you're joining us tonight. Thanks so much. I gotta ask too, how's the Corona hair coming along? I feel like I just got an upgrade recently that I've been enjoying, so I hope your hair is also looking and feeling fabulous. I have a quick shout out. It's Ike Anderson's birthday, so happy birthday to Ike. I hope he's having a fun day. Tonight we are going to be talking about the 2012 to 2013 season at Live Arts, and in a moment I will be joined by Marty Moore and Suzy Cincinnati. She will be reading a selection of Or by Liz Duffy Adams. So before we get into that, I want to take a second to shout out our community partners, Marco and Luca. I don't think there's anyone who doesn't love them, and it's good to know that they're doing curbside pickup and delivery. So please support them if you're feeling hungry. So let's bring Marty Moore on. We'll have a conversation. I'm gonna have a little quick hair change here.
Hello.
Hi, Marty. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited you are joining us today. You have had a really wonderful career in photography and in theater. Could you tell us just a little bit about yourself, how you got involved in theater and live arts?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I've been a photographer for most of my life. And when I was in photography school, we had a professor who encouraged us to to take an acting class, because photography, a lot of what you do, like requires the same types of skills to be able to communicate with people in a comfortable way and be able to pretend to know about what they do and things like that. So I have a story that from my very, very first photo shoot where it really came in handy. It was my first professional shoot was with Richard Nixon. I was working for a photographer and she got sick and I had to take the shoot for her. And so, he's like Satan to me when I was a kid, when I was growing up. It's all that we knew him. He was like ruining the world. And so I had to bring up all that charm and all that stuff that I learned from the acting class to be able to not be like, oh, when I saw him. And it was very interesting. He was a very nice man, and it turned out to be a good shoot. And so that's where my acting came in handy then. So I've always sort of dabbled in it. I did a lot of improv over the years, and did some children's theater when my kids were young, and did a lot of play on here in Charlottesville. And a lot of us morphed into live arts, at some point. And my first show was 6 Degrees of Separation with Betsy Tucker. And I've done 24/7. I don't even know how many times I've acted, directed, and written for that. So I've been with Live Arts for a while.
That's amazing. Before we get into the slideshow, I'm curious what it felt like to be acting that first class or those first few times. Was it initially really exciting, or was it kind of this uncomfortable feeling? What was that like?
It was, it was very freeing to me. It was, I always kind of wanted to do it, and it was always kind of something like, gee, I wish I could be an actress. But I'm a photographer and I like to hide behind the camera. I was never comfortable in front of it. And so to be able to be somebody else and have that kind of confidence that I didn't feel like I had in my regular life was very freeing and really exciting. And to learn those kind of skills too. And I use acting all the time. If I have to public speak or something, I kind of go into that mode rather than like, here's Marty. I'm always like, well, here's Marty photographer, here's Marty public speaker, instead of just being my goofy self, So it's a lot of fun, and yeah, and it's great. Yeah, great. Being on stage is such a great feeling, and having an audience, and it's just wonderful. It's a drug.
And so I know that you've also done and maybe shifted more into directing. I'm curious how you compare the two experiences. I mean, obviously there's a lot of differences, but
yeah, it's very different. When I first started directing, I was a little worried that I couldn't handle it emotionally, because when I would go to theater, I'd be like, oh, I'd love to play that role. I'd love to be on that's a great role. I'd love to play it. And I was worried I'd have some kind of FOMO when the show came out, and it's like, but it's not me on stage and I'm not getting all the glory. But when my first show went up and they went on stage, it was like giving birth, which is like this wonderful experience of having something that's yours, but it's not yours. You know, you give it life, and it's yours, but that life is their own to live, and doing a play is kind of that same feeling. Once you let go of it, you can do all you can to it to make it perfect, but ultimately it belongs to somebody else, and it's kind of it's a wonderful, freeing feeling. I like it a lot. You know, I love acting, and sometimes when you direct, you don't get cast as much because they're like, oh, she's a director, she might boss us around, you know. but it's, yeah, they're two very different experiences, so it's hard to say. I did worry about it when I first started, though. I did wonder if I could, you know, if I would get, now when I go to see a play, though, I'm like, oh, I'd love to direct that, you know, instead of saying, oh, I'd love to be in that play, you know. So it's kind of interesting how my brain flip-flopped that way, you know.
Absolutely. It's neat to, yeah, see the shift there.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we get into the slideshow here? I know that you directed speech and debate, which we'll get to in a minute, but kind of we can run through the season and talk a little bit more afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Melanin Project. That was Leslie Scotch-Jones' brainchild. It was a way to get more Black actors experience and time on stage, and Black directors, and expose the community to Black writers. So this was their first season, and their first show was A Raisin in the Sun, and which they did Clybourne Park afterwards, which is sort of a, you know, a prequel to Raisin in the Sun, loosely. And it was a wonderfully done, beautiful play. She's done so much for the community. Now she has the Charlottesville Players Guild, and they just do amazing plays. They just I've never seen anything there that just didn't blow my mind. They did the whole August Wilson series, and it was just, you know, and she gets people who don't even know that they can act to get up on stage and just blow everybody away. And she's brought so much to the community. And this was sort of the beginning of that. She did it for 3 years, and the proceeds went to a scholarship for for a Black student to go to one of the live arts classes, each series of the classes. So it had a lot of great effects on the community. So that's what I know about that.
Yeah, that's amazing. She's a wonder.
Mm-hmm. Which, yeah, so Clybourne Park is, you know, loosely based on what happened after Raisin in the Sun, you know, the gentrification. And, you know, first it starts out with the Black family moving into the neighborhood, and then it moves into the present day, where the neighborhood is being gentrified again, the different circumstances. And it's an interesting take on how it might have turned out, you know, and more about interpersonal than about politics. So, but it was a great cast. Yeah, Chris Patrick and Barbara's great. Barbara was great in that, and yeah, it's a really, really good cast, and the set was great too. This is a really good set year.
Yeah, we were talking about that. It really is fun to see the details and the level of carpentry. Yeah.
And Ray Netzel was in this too. He was great. He doesn't get on stage enough. I actually didn't see this one, so I don't remember what this one's about. I meant to look it up, but I missed this one. Chorus Line, though. That was a good one. I was saying that this version of it was so good, and I was dubious about it because it's such a big show, and everybody has to like be really on point, but there was so much heart on that stage. Everybody just gave 130%. They were so good, and the direction was amazing, and the cast was so good. And Daryl, I mean, anything with Daryl is wonderful. And but yeah, Sarah Edwards, and you know, yeah, just tons of people. Oh yeah, and what's her name? Not Marika, Keisha. Yeah. And it was just such a good show.
God bless the costume designer here.
Yeah, I know. Oh my gosh, those tights, yeah.
Casey Jones.
Yeah, costumes. Yeah, it was really wonderful. They did a great job, and it was, yeah, it was just so much fun to watch. And I'm not even a big fan of the show. Oh, next me. No. Yeah, I love that poster. The poster just blew my mind when they put it out. It's like, it's perfect. And They did Stephen Cram again this year too. They did The Humans, I think was his play, right? And oh, there's Augie. She was so good. This show was so it's such a great show for young people because it's so challenging for the actors because they talk about homosexuality and they talk about suicide and possible, you know, diddling from a teacher and stuff like that. And it's really very, very, very funny, but also like super poignant. And but my favorite part was in the middle of the show, they do this version of The Crucible, and the girl rewrites the whole thing, and they in the end they ripped off their Crucible costumes and were like in bodysuits, and you know they're supposed to be nude, and they danced to Freedom by George Michael, and it was just Mariah Johnson did the costumes and or did the choreography, and it was so much fun. They were so cute, and there's Max and Danny, and Danny's at UVA or just graduated UVA. He's a drama student now, or was a drama student, super talented kid. And I think the other two just graduated too last year. So yeah, and they were wonderful.
That's awesome.
Well, late night. I missed late night. You got to see late night, right? And,
I think this was one of the first shows I saw that, you know, as an adult at Live Arts. And it's one of the most memorable moments of all the things that I've seen. It was a cat puppet show that was done by Jigsaw, and he just was wearing this sort of box, and he had these cat puppets on sticks, and it was to the song Very Superstitious, and it was like acting up the 9 lives. I just couldn't. It was so brilliant.
Yeah, he's brilliant. He is missed in Charlottesville, but I'm sure he's doing fantastic in New York. He is such a talented guy, and he did the puppets for a lot of things, and he's just funny and talented. I love him. In the Vibrator play. This was, I think, Julie Hamburg's first play that she directed when she became the artistic director. I think it was her first one. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, very risque, and all the actors really had to go to different levels for this one. They had a lot of fun, and Sharon was fantastic, Sharon Milner, and Sarah Edwards again. This was her season, and Bill LaFleur, yeah, and them. Oh, and I think this was Melissa Charles' first show with Live Arts, and then she did Fun Home a couple seasons ago. She's very talented. She runs the, what is that, the Belmont Art Center? Yeah.
Makes me nervous just watching these slides.
Yeah, again, look at the sets too. I mean, this was a really good set. This set was amazing. I mean, it doesn't even look like you're looking at a set of a play. It looks like they filmed it on set in an apartment. It was beautiful. And I can't remember who did the sets, probably Carrie. But,
James Hart designed it, but there were a number of set dressers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this was a very fun show. This was Claire and Jen, Claire McGurk Chandler and Jen, what's her name, Downey, Chris Patrick again. Yeah, there's Chris Kelly, and we were just talking to him. And the set again for this one was Carrie Moran, and this was amazing. Like so much fabric and beautiful, and it's a really kind of interesting show, and makes it one of those. It was very, very funny, but it also made you think about like women's roles in society and things like that, you know, and how they're viewed then and kind of still today. You know? So that was very funny. Chris Patrick said that's him in the wig. But yeah, they had a lot of fun. You could tell. Yeah. And, yeah, that was a fun show. And Jen Downey, she's always great.
She was great.
Yeah, and this is another great set show. This set was really great because it had to be the 2 stories, you know, to make the play work, and they really did a great job. And it's such a huge cast.
The master carpenter. So
yeah, Howard Pape. Yeah, he was amazing. And yeah, Boomy Pedersen just blew me away, and she always blows me away, but she was pretty amazing. And it's always nice to see Scott Dunn on stage because he's usually behind the scenes, you know. And Kate Monahan's always fantastic. And Bill Ruff is actually kind of who piqued my interest in directing. So he was kind of the first one to sort of say like, wait, you can be a director.
Yeah, Leo Erico's in there too. It's nice.
Oh yeah, Leo. Yeah, I know, he's so funny. Yeah, he's always a good one to see on stage too, you know. And Christina Ball. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was a great cast. And but yeah, look at that set. So good.
Yeah, it's so beautiful, so much detail.
hmm hmm This was a fun show too. Phil Horst directed this, and Heather Powell, I think that's her name. Heather Powell did the choreography. Oh my goodness. It was, you could just see in that picture, it was so good. They did this jump rope dance. It was just amazing. And it was a lot of a lot of people's first show, like Deandra, and I'm pretty sure that it was Letty's first show. And uh, and yeah, it was such a great cast and really fun show. And Sarah Mitchell, I think it was her only show, but she was fantastic as the main character. And again, like another show, like I didn't think I would like, because I saw the movie one too many times with my kids, you know. So, but this jump rope dance was amazing. I mean, it was so good, and it was a lot of fun. And,
Yeah, well, and all the courage it takes to sign up for a play for the first time and not only have to learn choreography, but singing and acting. I mean, whew, that's like,
yeah,
I give a lot of credit to those folks.
yeah, and you know, I mean, Live Arts is very supportive that way. You know, they have a lot of rehearsals and a lot of production meetings and things like that that are very encouraging and keep, you know, when you do get to that point of feeling like I can't do this, this is way too much, they've got your back, which is nice. You know. And especially because my first directing, Speech and Debate was my first full-length play that I directed, and it was pretty scary, you know. And but Bree was my production manager, and she was amazing and kind of held my hand through the whole thing. And Matt Joslin, you know, came through in the end. We had a lot of like transition issues, and he was great, sort of guiding us along in those last days, you know. And so
Yeah. Was there something in particular that drew you to that script, or?
they actually brought it to me and asked if I would direct it. And then when I read it, I was like, oh yes, yeah, because I've worked with a lot of teens and young people during doing theater, so I felt very comfortable doing it, which is why I think that they asked me, you know, to do it. And but it's such a and it's also the mentor program, so it was great to work not just with the actors who were young, but also everybody working behind the scenes. You know, the sound designer and the lighting designer and stuff. Even though they had people with them, they were all young people, which was really fun. But it's so funny, and it's just it's so real, you know, with and not real, you know, at the same time. And these three like very different kids come together in this very odd way, and it's just really heartwarming, but hysterical and just and sad and tragic at times. But in the end, like it had all those elements. So I was like, I could do this, you know. And it was challenging because of doing it in the space that we did. It was so different than the traditional way that play is done. So it was fun. It was a really fun challenge. Yeah.
I gotta ask, how did the nude bodysuit scene go? I feel like that would be a tricky one.
It was great. They were great. They were so looking forward to getting their bodysuits. And I thought that the first rehearsal they would be like, oh, you know, but they were like, whoa, they ripped them off, and they did their dance, and the dance was hysterical, you know, because it had to be like they choreographed it, you know, and it was so funny. And they that was their favorite part. And it was really fun. And we had a because they had a costume change and set change during that time, the stage manager, I sort of incorporated her into the show rather than just somebody coming out and moving stuff around. And so she, you know, would dance for the audience and get everybody clapping, because it took them so long to change their costumes, because they would be just hysterical laughing backstage, you know, and everybody backstage would change, and that was so much fun, you know. It's such a good time, you know. It was great.
Oh, that's so
But yeah,
awesome.
they did not mind in the least. I thought for sure that would be, you know, something that I would have to talk them through and stuff, but no, they loved it.
Oh, cool. Well, I wanted to kind of segue a little bit more into the work that you've been doing more recently, and I know that you have directed primarily new works, and I'm curious your experience doing existent works versus new pieces and how you approach that.
Yeah, I would say like a good 90% of what I direct these days is new works, and it's very different. Like with Speech and Debate, for instance, you know, the traditional way it's done is a proscenium theater, and it's got 3 different sets always on stage and stuff, and we didn't have that. But I found myself kind of finding these hiccups, and like, oh gosh, you know, I need to make it look like people expect, and it really kind of hindered me a lot when I was doing this. So when you direct a new work, you don't have any of those preconceived ideas, and you can really take what you see in the script and not what you know it should be. And it's very freeing in that way, because you can do what you want with it. It's like a new toy. And when I work with writers, I'll tell them, like, that it's not going to be what they expect. Like, the first play that I directed was for the summer shorts, and it was Cora Schoenberg, and it was this wonderful piece, and it was like kind of this romance of a woman who like a J.K. Rowling, and one of her characters comes out, and I had Martin Kyle in there and this woman Jane, and they were fantastic, and we sort of like took it to the romantic level and sort of that, and Cora wasn't expecting that. She didn't, and so when she saw it in the rehearsal, she was actually very disappointed, but it was too late to change. We had already done all the work, and the show was starting, and I was heartbroken and sad and mad and all this stuff, and I'm like, I just ruined this woman's play. And then when her son saw it, he actually went to her and he was like, Mom, you need to apologize to that woman, because that was great, and she really made your play into something really bigger than what it was. And she and I are great friends now. We've we've made up, and we were just in King Lear together as sisters, and she's a wonderful person, and so that happens a lot, when you see things that the writer doesn't see, and they're often very appreciative. Like I did Well Adjusted for Phil Horst, and we took that play to the Fringe Festival in New York City and did real well. But when we were first doing the process, like I had seen something in it that he didn't see, and I told him that he couldn't tell me what, to change things, but he was so happy. He was like, wow, this changed the whole play, like I added this sort of caring and lovingness to something that was kind of quippy, and he like totally respected what I've done with it. So it's really it's fun. They're kind of two different animals, so I like both, but I do love doing the new works. I think that's kind of my forte. And there's so many great writers in this town. So many, Phil Horst, Robert Ray, Sean McCord, Jenny Mead, Kate Monahan, who is in a bunch of the plays that you just saw. I mean, there's just so many talented people, and it's great to give them a place, to give them bring their things to life. And,
absolutely. And I think definitely with the Playwrights Lab and the Playwrights Collective, we have a lot of folks interested in writing new work and figuring out how to put it out there.
Yeah. I directed for the Playwrights Collective 2 summers ago, and it was great. It was so much fun to work with. We did it at the Belmont with Melissa Charles, but it's so much fun to do it here, because some of the stuff I've done and brought it to New York or whatever, not all of it's been here, and it's just so nice to share with the community, what our own people can do, and that you could see a show that's just as good as something that they picked up from French's or whatever, and so it's pretty cool. And
I know you've done some writing too. Is there something you'd like to say about the work you're doing now and how that?
I did write a play recently for for New Circle Theater, which is in New York City. They asked writers to write a very short play under 5 minutes about the experience of being quarantined. And so I did, and I was one of the ones selected to have it performed, which was great. And they might be taking it on to like a YouTube thing, stay at home or whatever. So that would be great if it got picked. But it was really fun to see. And my play was very sweet. It was more about what happens when we're done, and they're getting ready to go to a party, and the one doesn't want to go because he's not ready, and the other one's like, well, don't worry, it'll be safe and all this stuff, and he's like, no, it's not that, I'm not ready, I didn't do everything I wanted to do, and he goes on to he wanted to play guitar and teach himself German and cook and paint and write a novel, and and all this stuff, and instead one day he just watched a flower bloom, And, you know, and he was like, it's a waste because this was a gift of time, you know, and which is what I see this as, or try to, at least when I'm, you know, trying to encourage myself to get through it. You know, it's, we have time to sit and watch a flower bloom, or we have time to really notice things that are around us, and the things, you know, notice things that we took for granted, and notice things that we put way too much time and effort in that really don't mean anything, you know, and, you know, consumerism and things like that, that are not the important things, you know, and so I think it's, so that was kind of the message that I was trying to get across, you know, and, but I've written for 24/7 a couple times, and I've written some short plays that have been, I did one that was in New York, but it was really fun, you know, so it's fun to do. I like writing. It's you know, most of my plays are comedies. This was the first one that wasn't a comedy, you know, so it's fun.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. It's really been lovely hearing
Oh,
our
thank you.
reflections.
Thank you.
And so now I'd love to invite Suzy Cincinnati to join us, also a fellow writer and performer. Hi, Suzy.
Hello. Hi, I'm feeling great. The sun is kind of doing its late afternoon, evening beaming, so hopefully it's not too angel behind my head.
Yeah, I know. I just had a glare come in for a minute. I was like, oh no, there goes my forehead.
I love anything that extends our daylight, and it's such a gift to have, you know, we're talking about gifts. It's such a gift to have more daylight while we try and grapple with all of this stuff.
Yeah.
We just need to be outside, and watching flowers move is so important.
Yeah, that's actually a true story. I did. I did watch a flower bloom. I was trying to garden and I was messing everything up, and I just laid in the grass and watched a little. I was like, is that a weed or is that a flower? And eventually it was a weed that turned into a flower. It's beautiful. You know, just one little leaf popped and then the rest, or petal, I mean. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Suzy, I'm so glad that you could join us tonight, and I'm excited to hear the passage you're going to read. But I'd love it if you could kind of introduce yourself a little bit and tell folks how you got involved in theater and in live arts.
Sure. So I did the voiceovers on TLC when I was a kid. And that was my foray into professional child acting. And I was 6 or 7, and I would hear my voice on morning programming that was catered towards children. And so I had this strange upbringing and introduction to acting and theater, but mostly film and TV and voiceover stuff. So it was a really strange childhood for me and for my brother, who was more successful than I was. Those were hard lessons to learn as a young child. So I found a lot of grounding when I got involved in theater in middle school and in high school. And then I went to UVA drama, and a lot of the names that sort of overlap between grounds and live arts, you know, like Richard and Betsy and Clinton, and so many other people had sort of been whispering what live arts meant to them when I was an undergrad, but I don't think I was able to fully appreciate it. Think of Vita was my first show, or Raisin in the Sun, whichever came first that season. My friend Darren Nelson was in Raisin in the Sun, and I was just so moved by that piece. I love Lorraine Hansberry and the potential of live arts. So I left Charlottesville and I ended up in New York after grad school. And I was working at William Morris, and my boss was actually the agent that represented the playwright from Speech and Debate, Stephen Karam, and then Legally Blonde, Nell Benjamin and Larry O'Keefe. So like I knew all of these playwrights and directors on this really cool level that I really didn't think I would have the opportunity to. And I would work long hours in New York, and I eventually got burnt out and moved to San Francisco, where I lived for a few years. And then when we found out we were expecting, we wanted to be closer to family. So we came back to Charlottesville, my husband and I, and This is where we're raising our little girl. So my first foray back into live arts, I saw Bob's show, Follies, and then Marion let me be dramaturg for The Humans, directed by Fran Smith, and it was such a beautiful experience. And then Don Shimke asked me to be in her the play she was directing by Courtney Walker as part of the Live Arts Holiday Special. On stage, I had to eat brownies. It's very difficult, very taxing work. Yeah. I will still eat brownies, but during the run I was actually very sick, and I remember thinking, oh my goodness, this is my first time acting with live arts, and I literally vomited driving to final dress or to tech, and in my hand. And so I think I called Don, and Kip made it so that our show could run first for that night, and then I could go home. And I was like, who are these people? Why are they making accommodations for me? I have proven nothing. And that's the kind of community that live arts is, and I think I recognized that early on. I also was asked by Liz to do soundboard for Men on Boats, No Men, No Boats. And that was such a surreal experience with having to make the decision to close the show early. And we were just weeping the night when we knew it would probably be the last time we would all get together for a while. And it was just a beautiful thing, more like a see you later, not knowing how long it would go. So here I am today.
Thank you. It's lovely to hear those things. So I know you'll be reading a segment from Or by Liz Duffy Adams. Would you be able to set the scene for what you're reading for us?
Yeah. So the dramaturg in me was furiously researching how to present this tonight, and I actually just want to read you what is on the tombstone to the woman who has inspired this show. So her name is Afra Ben. She was a Restoration playwright, the first female playwright in England that we are aware of in the mid 17th century. So, just a true pioneer. And her tombstone is hilarious. It says, "Here lies a proof that wit can never be defense enough against mortality." And that tombstone is actually at Westminster Abbey. The acclaim that she managed to earn in her lifetime, not only as a playwright, but a poet, a novelist, a spy during the English Civil War. Like this woman begs to have material written about her. And there are also a few other plays about Afra Ben, but definitely look up her life. There are a few confirmed accounts of her life, biographical accounts. So a lot of the work that is done around her work and her life is sort of speculative. And in that vein, Liz Duffy Adams wrote Or, and I figured out that the title Or with a comma after it is actually pulled from one of Afra Ben's novels about an African slave leader. So I was thinking that comma was something really profound, but I think it was actually just, no, this is part of the title of the Orinoco or the Royal Slave novel that she wrote in 1688. So to set this scene, it's just the prologue. It's actually the actor that's playing this playwright, Afra Ben. And as you can tell from those pictures, the production photos, it's it's very much like in the vein of a restoration comedy, and it's farcical and kind of hodgepodge. But it's really fun. And here you go. Is that okay, Annie?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're ready to jump in, can't wait.
Yeah.
Yay.
Nicely done.
Yeah, that was really nice. Thank you, Suzy. Before we ring off, do you all have any last thoughts or stories that you'd like to share? Or
I can't think of any, but
Oh, I do actually. If you're thinking of anything, Marty, I'll give you a minute. So my husband is not what we would call a natural theater patron, and sometimes it takes him a bit of prodding to get into the theater. He did not come see Follies with me as much as I tried to convince him, but he had to see me when I was on stage for the holiday show. And we found a babysitter, and he came to the show that night, and he stepped in, and I forget if it was Ray that was making the pre-show introduction, but he got one of the buttons, the newbie button. And at the end of the night, he was just floored. He was floored by his whole experience. He said, "I now see what you mean when you say that it is a true community." And that was really quite profound for him to admit and to observe. So I think that was quite clear for even someone who is reluctant to be as frequent patrons as we are.
that's a great story. I love that.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
I'd love to share what Jeremy and Suzy talked about when we had the rehearsal, when Suzy referred to one of the shows as our show, and then kind of backtracked and didn't say it, and Jeremy pointed it out, and then he said, "Say that. It is our show." And one of the things about live arts has always been like, what role will you play, or it's your theater and stuff like that. And it really is, and they encourage people from every, to be not just the actors and not just the directors, like everybody is part of the community, the people who come and do the sets like Leo, or the people who come and, there's so many people involved, not just the actors and directors and writer, and it's all a community, and it's like doing set builds is so much fun. You get great pizza, and you always meet wonderful people, and they teach you how to use tools you always want to use. It's a great place that way. And so it is your show or my show or our show, which is pretty cool.
Absolutely. Thanks for remembering that. That's nice. Well, Marty and Suzy, thank you so much for joining us. It's such a pleasure to have your company and your expertise and stories to share. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. It's an honor.
Thanks, Annie. It was great to meet you, and take care. Be safe.
Absolutely. So to our audiences, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you can tell what a joy it is to be here, and we're really glad that you're joining us along for the ride. If you feel moved to do so, please help us continue our mission of forging theater and community by donating to our Forge Ahead campaign. You can find the link pinned to the comments below, or go onto our website. I also wanted to let you know that tonight at 8 o'clock, just in a few minutes after our show, our friends at VPM and the Paramount are hosting Dinner and a Show with Terry. So Terry Allard is a host of Charlottesville Inside Out and a great friend of Live Arts. She's great. And this is a showcase featuring former Inside Out guests performing from their homes. So music, poetry, juggling, who knows, it's gonna be cool. So head over to the Paramount's Facebook page to watch the live stream at 8 p.m. I think you'll really enjoy it. And be sure to join us tomorrow evening. We will be talking about the 2013 to 2014 season, and Grady Smith will be joining us, which I haven't met him before. I'm very excited to see what he has to say.
Fun. He'll have a good time.
Yeah. So absolutely. So again, thanks everyone for joining us. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and have a great night.
Thank you. Bye.